Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is Jeremy coming at you once again with Redtired Podcast, and I'm joined with Old Faithful himself, the man who is 6'2", 6'3" on a good day, Big Bomber Bill. Good morning, Bill.
Actually, not to be specific on the math, but it's 6'5", 72 inches.
What?
I checked.
Whatever. Nobody really cares how tall you are, but 6'5", that is kind of impressive, actually.
My mom cares.
Maybe some people would care.
Your mom cared.
You've never even met my mother.
I don't need to.
Do you want me to insert like a laugh track there or something?
A Coliseum.
Quit touching your microphone.
I'm not touching it.
You just touched it.
I touched the rod leading to the microphone.
It causes interference.
Okay, well, you should be more specific.
One of these days we're going to get you a good setup, a good quality microphone. But until then, quit touching your microphone. You're an adult. You can handle this.
I want you to insert a Coliseum of roaring people from Roman era, like Gladiator.
The joke is past.
Also, okay.
Well, okay. So that was fun. Let's go ahead and move forward because we got some interesting stuff to talk about. So,
oh yes,
the Twitterati is up in arms again. They're doing what they do best. They're throwing a fit. So,
and that's the only reliable source of information. If it comes from the internet, you can trust that that's more accurate than the Holy Bible itself. Am I right or am I right?
Well, I'm picking up your sarcasm. You're certainly laying it on thick.
You know me, I like to lay things on thick.
But dumb.
So, I don't know if there's a joke there.
There may have been. It's hard to say for sure. So the Twitterati is going nuts with the hashtag impeach Trump again. So apparently we've learned absolutely nothing from this last little grandstanding stunt that the House of Representatives pulled in not allowing any kind of due process and then pushing the impeachment stuff into the Senate and then calling for the fair trial. Okay. You've been following this stuff so far, right?
Roughly. Again, I think it's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. So I will kind of roughly keep track of it. That's about it.
Yeah, it's been pretty dumb, and I'm confused at this point because it seems like the left is just kind of falling apart. There's like 12 people that are challenging Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for her
spot
seat in New York.
12 people. I knew there was one. There was one. One person in my book. It shows like oh, okay, that's standard. But 12 people, it's kind of like, oh boy, that's there's a lot of people that think they could do their job better than you, and I don't know if we want that.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people. In fact, one of them is a former anchor for, I think it was CNBC. She's actually been overseas in different combat zones and whatnot, and actually has some real world experience. Now, she is a Democrat, but bear in mind, she's a free market Reagan Democrat.
Now, Jeremy, here's the more important part. When looking for someone for this high of official position, there's only one thing I got to ask them. Were they a bartender in New York?
I'm pretty sure this one was not.
All right, we can't have her then. She's obviously not qualified for the job.
Well, I don't know. Being a former CNBC anchor, I'd think that she'd at least have some.
Yeah. She is probably way more qualified than a bartender. The bartender AOC was.
Oh, yeah. No, I wanted to get this right. Former CNBC anchor Michelle Caruso Cabrera.
Now, how does it say how old she is on there?
Well, she wrote a book in 2010. So I'm guessing she's older than 28. The book was actually titled, I'm Right, More Prosperity, Less Government. Now, this is coming from, bear in mind, I said she is a Democrat.
Are you sure? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shocking.
Well, I mean, she probably has a lot more classic liberal ideologies than, say, like an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's a little bit more of a socialist anarchist type.
Yeah.
She's praised former President Reagan's economic policy, and she even called for limited government. And so, I mean, I think maybe that people up in New York, they're going to see this kind of stuff and they're going to be like, because you got to remember AOC really screwed the pooch on the Amazon deal.
I think she's screwed the pooch on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but you talking about the Reagan, that kind of, because I know I like Reagan's one of my favorite presidents.
Mm-hmm.
If he handled the USSR and all the Russian, all that jazz, really great. But it's very interesting that she's like supporting the Reagan era less government, because that's all he talked about was less government.
Yeah.
And I think that the Democrats didn't like him that much either, because I'm not 100% sure, because he was always like less government, and then he invested a substantial amount of money into the military expansion, because he knew that was kind of the only way, because you had to show strength to fight the USSR.
Yeah, the peace through strength.
Yeah, and it's kind of like one of those things like, well, that sucks that we have to build war machines for peace, but
so this kind of pushes the idea that the left is really, I mean, they're at the point where they're eating themselves alive. It's weird.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you just said it, a second impeachment, so.
Yeah. Do you think Nancy's going to even hold the speakership of the House anymore after 2020?
I think I think a good point is, I think if I remember correctly, I was watching the news this morning, and Fox News or something had said that New Hampshire was starting to go to the Republican side, because they were really all starting to support Trump. I think, if I remember correctly, it was the morning. It was the morning. It was before my second cup of coffee.
Fair point.
But it kind of, if I remember correctly, and if I read it right, it does kind of, I think that does show that the Democrats are losing power. And a good sign of Democrats losing power is Nancy Pelosi not holding that seat anymore. I mean, she's been doing this for a long time. She's a pretty big, heavy hitter for the Democrats. So
well,
yeah.
she's a pinch hitter too, because she kept flip flopping on the issue of the impeachment when it first came up. Of course, you had a whole bunch of lefties that were like, we need to impeach Trump. We need to impeach Trump. And even Pelosi was like, let's slow our roll here. We don't just start throwing people impeachment papers. We don't just throw people out of office.
I didn't know that.
There has to be a crime. Right.
Yeah.
No, she was trying to rein in the younger freshmen.
Those 16-year-olds, those 16-year-olds and stuff like that don't know anything in the world, that she wants to try to.
The Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes and the Ilhan Omars. They were the freshman representatives in the House when back in 2018. That's all they kept talking about was impeachment. And to Nancy's credit, she was like, "We don't have anything to go on. He didn't do anything wrong. We have to let's slow down here." But she flip-flopped. She was the pinch hitter, so to speak. She flip-flopped and she was like, "Yeah, we're going to impeach him." So. And then they pushed that impeachment agenda in the first place.
So with this impeachment, the second time, take two, they tried on the first time for abuse of power and interfering with political candidates, and
it was
that.
Abuse of power and
yeah. I think it was that, and I think they were trying to get, because they were like, you're trying to stop Joe Biden, but yeah. And he's like, no, I just no.
Well, and that was the funny thing, was Joe Biden was actually doing a great job of stopping himself.
Yeah. But it comes to the second time, and I'm just kind of wondering what they're going to try to do. I mean, can they say the same charge? Can they try him for the same charges?
I mean,
I don't.
When you consider what we're dealing with here, the precedent was set in the House. Okay, so go back to when I'm shaking my camera over there. So go back to when Nancy and the Goon Squad decided, like, we're going to push this impeachment thing through.
Yeah, I remember that.
Then they started looking for some kind of a crime, right? Some kind of an evidence.
Boy.
There had to have been something that he did wrong. That was their thing. And so in the House, they didn't call any witnesses. They didn't develop any evidence. They just basically submitted some charges and said, this is what we're pushing This is what we believe that he did wrong. Um, and they didn't, like, there was no witnesses or nothing, so they pushed it through to the Senate. Well, the Senate says, that's cute and all, but you really, we're going to do what you did, basically.
They're just like, where's the rest of the stuff at? I think we're missing some papers of what he actually did.
Mm-hmm. And it took Nancy over a month to get those impeachment papers from the House to the Senate. Now, if it was me, like, I could have scribbled out on one piece of notebook paper everything we were accusing the president of and just handed it to him. It's probably the same thing that she did. There was no arguments presented in the House other than each individual representative getting up. There was no witnesses that were brought forward. There was no trial, and there's not really supposed to be a trial, but you got to at least find some facts before you start throwing.
You got to present your evidence. You try to convince the other side that, hey, this is wrong,
And that's where the trial in the Senate is supposed to kick in, and then they started calling for the fair trial in the Senate, but you didn't want to give the guy any kind of a nothing. I mean, he had no control over anything that was said in the House. Nothing. There was no.
Why do you think it's exactly why he didn't show up? He was like, I could just imagine him in the Oval Office, like, "Oh, what we got here? I'm not going to go to that."
Yeah, that's probably exactly what happened, because in order to impeach, you need a supermajority in the Senate. That's 2/3 vote, 67%.
I'm surprised. Wasn't it kind of like a 50-50 almost?
Oh yeah, no, it was partisan lines except for that little snake prick Mitt Romney.
Yeah, and I remember just looking at those numbers like that. Okay, that does well. At least we still win, but I'm surprised it was those numbers.
Yeah, in the Senate, it's pretty well divided, but that's why we knew that it wasn't going to be much of an impeachment once it got to the Senate, because it's going to be party lines. 50% is going to go that way, 50% is going to go the other way, and that's not going to even come close to the necessary 2/3 majority.
Yep.
So what kind of makes me giggle to myself a little bit here is when I look at this, and this is what's trending on Twitter with impeach Trump again. I'm lost for words here at this point, because you have to understand, if you're calling for the impeachment of Trump yet again, that just tells me that you have absolutely no idea how the process really works.
What has it? It's been like a week since he was acquitted. When did he get? I'm looking at my calendar.
When you got it up on your calendar?
Yeah, no, I should. But just hey,
big circle around it. Trump
big man won it that day for us. But it hasn't even been a month, and I'm pretty sure they can't legally do that, can they?
Legally? I mean, legally they can. They're the Senate and the House, they can do anything they want to, but the Twitterati can't do anything. They don't know.
So it's just who exactly is it? Is it just a big influencers that are doing this?
Probably people who don't even matter. So so here I'm gonna cite a couple people. I'm not gonna give out their actual handles, but I'm gonna say that Jessica F said, seriously, with this hashtag impeach Trump again ? Democrats learned nothing. Just keep wasting our tax dollars. It just refreshed on me. Look at that.
Oh.
Let's see here. Someone attacking lawyer, former director of the FBI, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Bob Mueller. Time to impeach Trump again. All right, that's cute.
What?
I didn't know Bob Mueller had a Purple Heart.
Bob Mueller?
It's Twitter. It's probably fake. Who knows? Another guy says, and I'm not going to say his name because I would give it away. LMAO, they didn't impeach him already, and it's a little picture of Patrick from SpongeBob SquarePants, kind of looking over his shoulder, like, what's going on here?
They're like, we'll get him this time.
This guy, Macraw, we'll just put Macraw, says, so Emperor Trump wants to slash the budget of the best hope of putting a stop to the coronavirus, and he'll likely waste the money on either his border, death fortress, or space farce. Seriously, just impeach this MFer. Round 2, let's go. Hashtag impeach Trump again.
What?
Yeah. I'm a little confused at this whole thing. I'm like, if you want to impeach somebody again,
evidence,
when obviously it failed catastrophically the first time because you didn't have the votes in the Senate, what makes you think that anything's going to change? Period. You came into this whole process with fake accusations, with no evidence whatsoever. It was clearly a partisan attack. And here we are again talking about impeach again.
You know what probably happened, Jeremy?
What's that?
As soon as Nancy Pelosi put that envelope to send it to Congress, send it off, she put it in the mailbox and she shut it. She put up the flag. It's like, okay, the door gets busted open. It was like, we got the evidence that proves that he did it. And she's like, I just sent it off. I can't. Guess we'll have to redo it again.
Well, dang it. Well, maybe next year.
Guess we'll get them after. We'll wait a week or two and try it again.
I don't know. I'm starting to think that they're going to lose the House with the way that they've been doing things. But what's getting interesting is there's a lot of states that are pushing for the what are they calling it? The popular vote thing. So I think it was Virginia recently. Their House just passed a bill that says that all of their electoral votes are now going to go to the winner of the popular vote. So what they're trying to do, and I know I just derailed a tad here, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to basically circumvent the Electoral College.
So
because they can't win a fair election based on the rules that we already have. At least that's the perspective now. However, what's dangerous is you have to understand that this can come back to bite you in the butt down the road.
It can. Elaborate on that.
So
expand on that.
Okay, so for example, California.
Okay.
California is obviously a very blue state. Am I right?
It's something.
Yeah, they're nuts out there.
Yeah.
But not all of California is blue, and not all of California is nuts. The only reason that California swings blue is because there's such a concentration of an echo chamber within the cities, i.e. San Francisco, the city by the bay, whatever. So the entire city is a very, very large populous area, and they all have the same kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Blue. I mean, the old saying goes, you could stick a D on a bag of crap and it'd get elected in California. So take that into consideration, right? Now, also take into consideration that, say, what it would have been about 20 or 30 years ago now, that California was largely Republican.
Really?
Really. California has not always been a liberal haven.
Wow.
So
what happened, I wonder?
I think the influx of big tech, big tech being there in
people with money.
Potentially, but big tech comes to California because California is a place to be, and that's where they set up. There was a lot of tax deferments and things like that where they could go out to California and establish a business, and build it into something amazing.
Okay.
Well, now they're getting taxed to death, and so some of those places, like say Apple, for example, they're like, well, maybe Texas isn't looking so bad. Maybe we're going to go to Texas. Right.
I think it's just funny seeing Apple in Texas.
It is. It really is.
I like a picture of Steve Jobs in a cowboy hat, pair of boots on, Spurs. Hey, y'all.
And you know what? I'd probably shake that man's hand. Welcome to Texas. Now,
y'all.
The point that I was making here is that this is setting a very dangerous precedent. Yes, today it may not actually go very well for the Republican Party. However, carry this into the future 10, 20, 30 years, and you think it won't ever backfire? You think people are that stupid that they actually can't pick up on the fact that you're trying to change the constitutional laws? Now, granted, they have the power of the states, and they're well within their legal rights to do these things.
Yeah.
But when you do these types of things, what it does is it prevents you and your party, it gives you and your party a bad name, first of all. And so that prevents you and your party from ever becoming electable again.
Mhm.
Effectively, it's killing off the Democratic Party.
Okay.
To further cement my point on it killing off the Democratic Party, James Carville, you know who that is?
No.
Let's just say he's a very prominent Democrat. He's a very intelligent guy. I don't like all of his ideas, but he's very intelligent.
But the intelligence is there.
The intelligence is definitely there. He's probably a lot more classic liberal than a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with right now. Well, anyway, James Carville was recently on one of the media outlets saying, like, this is the demise of the Democratic Party, the way that they're doing business. I don't want to be part of a cult.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's coming from a very prominent Democrat, right? So you take all of these crazy ideas, such as, well, we're just going to give all of our electoral college votes to the winner of the popular vote in the country. Well, that's kind of a crazy thought, but like, how do you calculate who's the popular vote without submitting your electoral votes? Oh, are we going by the numbers of the individuals? Is that what's going to do? Okay, fine. People aren't going to agree with that in the long run. People are going to see a problem with it. You're going to soil what little there is left for the possibility of your party becoming electable. You're going to interfere with it because people are going to get sick of your crap. And then you're going to literally kill off your party.
So would you say that we can see California or something, or not California, the original state, Virginia?
Mm-hmm.
You see Virginia possibly turning red?
Virginia is primarily red.
I thought it would.
But
what?
Yep.
Well, what all the dumb stuff? What are they doing down there then?
Because in Virginia there is a huge population, a huge metro area up in the north, and all those people that live in that miserable little metro area get one vote, just like all of the red counties within the state get. Each individual gets one vote. That's the true measure of democracy. One man, one vote.
Yeah.
So when you bring all of these people into a metro area, what happens? It expands, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And they get put into their little echo chamber.
Okay.
An echo chamber is where you're basically bouncing ideas off of one another and arguing out your points and blah, blah, blah. Eventually you become inundated with a certain ideology.
Yeah.
In other words, you become what you surround yourself with.
Okay. So a bunch of liberals become a bunch of liberals if surrounded by liberals.
Yeah.
Got it.
And if you move to Virginia and you live in that metroplex area or that metro area, chances are eventually you're going to get some interaction with some liberal ideology, right? So it's like a cancer. It spreads and it infects.
Poor Jake.
Yeah.
We're going to have to old yeller him behind the barn.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, me too. Sacrifices have to be made for the greater good.
Sacrifices have to be made. So in any case, people are eventually going to get sick of this ideology, and because you're going to have people that are looking at the Democrats and they're saying, dude, you're cheating.
Well, you could tell people are going to get sick about this, and other than the impeachment and stuff like that, another big political thing that's going on right now is the Virginia gun thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just happened to be talking about Virginia has their gun laws, and they were just talking about how they just passed that and did all that stuff, and it actually has video from inside the room, and they had to tell people to leave, and they're like, we could be here, and they're like, no, you're gonna be arrested, get out, and like people were freaking out, and there's one video they were like, and it's passed, and 5 seconds in the video, one guy just walked up and said, you just made me a felon. Yep. And so that's a really good example of what you're talking about, that people are going to be like, you know what? I don't like what's going on, or something like that. And so
ultimately, if they keep pushing in this direction, it's going to lead to another civil war.
Yeah. I actually, Jake called after that thing was passed, and I looked at my dad, and I was like, Dad, ask him if the chair is against the wall.
The chair?
The chair is against the wall. It's a Red Dawn joke.
Oh, against Red Dawn. Wall.
Chair is the chair. Yeah, you don't remember that, Red Dawn? They're all listening to the radio, and it's like Radio Free America, and it's like, this is for the resistance fighters. The chair is against the wall.
Sorry.
I say again, the chair.
It's been a long time.
I gotta go, man. I gotta go. Yeah. Red Dawn, man. Watch it.
Sorry. I will. I have no problem. We're talking about the old Red Dawn, right? Not that new remake garbage.
The original documentary. Yeah, it's a documentary.
Oh, I learned something new today.
Wolverines.
Wow. All right, so be careful what you wish for, because you push anyway. Yeah, let's get back to that. You keep pushing this crazy agenda, and eventually people are going to revolt. So even though they had all those people up in Virginia that were up there peacefully, an actual peaceful protest, not some peaceful protest.
That was really, actually, I was really quite impressed. They said that the protesters at the Capitol, like when they left the Capitol, it was cleaner. They cleaned it, and they're like, "Oh, how about we just get all the garbage while we're here?" And they're like, "Okay."
Yeah, because at the end of the day, most of us law-abiding citizens, we just want to be left alone.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is you find so many more ethical and moral attitudes and moral and ethical decisions being made by these gun owners who, yes, okay, we get it. That gun has the ghost gun, the 30 caliber clip ghost gun. Whatever.
I can't find a ghost gun, man.
I'm still looking,
one, but I can't find one. Rocket launcher, 30 carbine magazine.
I'm just gonna, I'm gonna download one from the internet, and I'm gonna print it off on my little printer over there.
Ooh, let's go halvesies on it, man.
It's gonna take a while because my printer only uses ink and paper. But you see the point that the thing that took place up there in Virginia is these guys left everything in pristine condition. Morally and ethically, they literally set a standard for superiority over some of these gun-grabbing nut jobs.
And I think
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think that's kind of an example of, people aren't going to take at some points people are not going to take it anymore, because we're coming at you, with arms open. We're like, we're willing to negotiate and have a dialogue here. We're willing to open up. We realize you have some problems. You're infringing on our rights. That's a problem. But we want to have a dialogue. We want to open up. We don't want to do anything too hectic. And that other person's like, no, and they're like, you're racist. And they start throwing all this harsh language and F-bombs and stuff like that. And then I think that's going to be the point where it's like, dude, we've tried to be nice for you. What is it? We've tried the carrot. Now I got to try the rod or something like that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of negotiation that takes place that a lot of people don't realize. Like, when you negotiate gun rights, and we do need to move on, but when you negotiate gun rights, the thing is, my rights get taken away. None of your rights, and when I say your, I mean the left, the gun grabbing position, those guys, their negotiation is as well, what about just common sense background checks? We already have background checks in place. Yeah. This is nothing new. There's a national service. Well, it's not even a service. It's the background check. It's called NICS. You have to go through NICS if you want to purchase a firearm.
And we're even, and people like me and you, veterans, are even in the, like, we are like really in the system because we're veterans. It takes me like the background check is actually, they're like, oh, he was in the the government, so here's all of his federal stuff. So they got me on file, like they got me in a quick search bar. They got me saved and bookmarked, because I was a veteran.
And better still, if you've got a license to carry, you're already in the system. Like, you can just punch in your license to carry and be approved in minutes. It's not like there's no background checks. People are vetted. If you're saying that we don't have background checks, or the big thing is it's universal background checks. We need universal background checks.
What's the difference? Yeah,
exactly. There's no difference.
I'm looking forward, if people get their way with their gun law, that these gun laws they're trying to do is they'll be like, oh, you're in the military, you can't have a gun. Well, why? Because you have PTSD. I was a cook. Hey man, I don't make drills. I just enforce them.
I think more than anything that the guy who's got post-traumatic stress should be the first guy to get a gun. You know why?
Oh, yeah.
Because he has actually used it.
I'm quite proficient with my rifle.
And you don't have PTSD. But
the doctor said
it's undiagnosed.
It's not like y'all's.
Yeah. So anyway, speaking of the doctors,
Ooh, good carry-in right there. I saw that. That's slick. You know, slick.
See that
Slick.
smooth little segue.
Him in there smooth like
It's
jazz.
almost like I've been doing this for a while, but I really haven't.
Wow.
So check this out.
All right, checking.
I ran into a guy at the gym today. He saw one of my tattoos. He goes, "Hey, fourth ID." I had my earbuds in. I went, huh? He says, "You were in fourth ID. Were you there in Carson or Hood?" You know, we start talking a little bit. Turns out we were in the same unit at one point, fourth ID, and had a little bit of conversation and ended up talking about, you know, what are we doing now? He said he was a firefighter at one of the bases, which
makes sense.
Dope. It's a good way to make money. It's a good job.
Oh,
one on, two off, 1 on, 3 off. You know, hello. You get to work out all the time. That's a great way to make a living.
Yeah.
So we get to talking about VA stuff, and he had some comments that really concerned me because I was
about the VA system. No,
yeah,
he's obviously lying.
Okay, so what he said to me, and I'm gonna punch up some numbers here.
Just run up some numbers here.
So we as a couple of us in the sauna, it turned out we were all vets, and there's like 4 veterans. We're just sitting in the sauna, getting our sweat on. You know, everything's good.
All right. So first off, that sounded really weird. 4 vets, just get our sweat on. We're in the sauna.
You want me to rephrase it?
Yeah, you can keep going.
We were 4 vets. We just got done working out. We were sweating it out in the sauna. None of us even talked to each other. We were just all doing our own thing. I was listening to music. I didn't even pay any attention to him until he saw the tattoo. Anyway, thanks for making it weird. Anyway, so when our conversation turned to the VA, he said, "Well, I have 80% disability, but I'm getting paid for 60."
Wait, let me do the math here.
That doesn't make sense. So you know, I've got a history with VA claims and whatnot. I used to run a nonprofit organization that helped veterans with their claims. I know a thing or two about the VA. So let's talk. All right. So David is his name. David and I, after I got out of the sauna, we talked a little bit, and he pulled up his earnings statement and his disability ratings all on his phone, which apparently that's a thing now. I didn't know.
It's about the only good thing they got going for him, right?
Yeah, you got something going right. Good job.
Look at you.
So David said, "Well, I've got 80% disability, but I'm only getting paid for 60." I said, "That doesn't make sense. So let me see what you got." He hands me his phone, and I'm flipping through it, and I say, "Okay, 30%, 30%, 10%, 10%. Okay. To the untrained eye, 30 plus 30 plus 10 plus 10 equals 80, right?"
Yes.
Okay. So I had to explain to him, "David, this is not how the VA does math. This is very disappointing for you, but you're not 80%. So let me explain. 30%, the very first 30%, yeah, that counts. Okay, the second 30%, it's going to be lower. It's actually going to be somewhere around to the tune of like 24% when they work out your pay. The third one being 10%, you might get 5% for it. And then the fourth one being 10%, you might get nothing for it. That doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
But this is how the VA does math.
So the more percent you have, the lower the amount is. Does that make sense?
So the first disability you get full credit for. So in David's case, it was 30%, 30%, 10%, and 10%. What we did was basically I got to step back. Okay, let me step back here. So for the first disability, you get the full 30%.
Yeah. Okay.
The second one, it's going to be substantially less. So yes, you're still rated at 30% for the second disability, but they're probably going to count it a lot closer to, say, 20%. Okay. The third disability was 10%. And the fourth disability was 10%. And each one of those would have most likely been halved because it's such a small number. Now, with David's 30, 30, 10, and 10, the actual combined disability rating equals 60%. How they get this, okay? It's confusing. Now let's pretend.
Yeah, it's the VA. I kind of imagine it would be confusing.
So let's do this. Let's take away one of David's 10% disabilities.
Okay.
That takes his actual cumulative disability down to 56%, but there's no 56% at the VA. So it rounds up. Anything at the 5 mark, so 55, 56, 57, it rounds up. However, 54, 53 rounds down.
Ugh.
Okay. So if I took away one of David's disabilities, and then he still has the 30, and another 10, cumulative disability rating was 56%. So that last 10% only gave him 4%. Does that make any sense to you?
No, it's a VA.
Good. It shouldn't. Now, I'm going to use myself as an example.
Oh boy,
because I've got a few. So my first disability rating is 70% because that's the high number. Okay. So 70% on my big one, that means 70% is 70%. It's yours. You get the full 70%.
Cash money.
All right. Next, I have a 20. That gives me an extra 6%, pushing it up to 80%. So that 20% disability only equated to 6% additional cumulative disability. So my disability rating with a 70% and a 20% only comes out to 76. Fun, huh? Now,
no,
lucky for me, I have another 20% that I can throw in there. And that bumps my disability up to 81%. Now, as we talked about, it has to be 85 or more to get bumped up to the next increment. So 81% equals
80%.
80. That's right.
Obviously.
This is the fun little world of VA math. So, bearing all that in mind, if you're a vet,
okay,
and you need help within the VA system, let's say with a buddy of mine let's say, actually, you know what? I'm not going to mention any names, but I got another friend. He's got a 50% disability, and he's got a 20% and a 10%, if I remember correctly. Just based off of those numbers, the 50, the 20, and the 10, what do you think that his actual disability rating would be?
50, 20, and a 10 is probably it's probably under 50.
Well, no. 50 is the big one, right?
Oh, 50, yeah. The first one is full amount, so it's probably somewhere around 60.
That's right. 64%.
I got something right for once, man.
So,
it's great.
So, that being said, what I told him was twofold. I said, first of all, you need to file to get that 50% bumped up. You need to file a notice of disagreement and just sit back and wait. Don't get antsy over it. It's going to take time.
Okay.
But you need to get that 50% bumped up. But you also need to go ahead and file a notice of disagreement on the 20 and the 10. See, this was his first time getting rated, and so you never take the first offer. Anybody who's ever been in sales knows you never take the first offer, right?
Okay.
Now, let's say that he gets denied all of the others except for the 10%, and they go ahead and bump him up to 20% on what was originally a 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That takes his cumulative disability from 64% up to 68%.
Which brings it up to 70.
Right. The difference between a 60% rating and a 70% rating, your 60% is going to, and I'm not factoring in kids or family or anything like that. I'm just pretending it's just the vet.
Yeah.
That's going to net you $11.3168 per month. Now,
it's not bad.
If you get it up to that next increment at the 70%, that's going to give you $14.2617. So that little percentage bump right there gives you almost $300 extra.
Dang.
This is VA math, and it's very complicated.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the biggest rating is always the one you want increased the most.
So this is not really. I'm trying to get my VA benefit disability all squared away. It's not showing any. I do not feel confident about it at all. I mean, they shot me down for asthma, so I don't understand how any of that worked. But great, I feel really great about this.
Even though it was diagnosed.
Yeah.
Did you submit that information to them?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I have the paper. It says it's not service connected, and I was like,
yeah. And all you need to do is file a notice of disagreement citing the burn pits.
Oh, I have paper. It says that stuff. It says that memorandum was put out about a warning for it, and I have all that information, and I'm gathering it all, and I'm going to take it. I automatically after that second time came in, and they were like, asthma is not service related. I'm like, okay, sorry, I'm an idiot. My bad.
Fair enough.
But then they're like, the papers, and here's the VA again in a nutshell. Is they said, like, well, we changed all the paperwork. I'm like, excuse me? They're like, yeah, if you resubmitted it after a year, you have to do it on this paperwork system. Okay, why didn't you tell me? Oh, well, we did tell you it's a new system. Okay, so I need to fill out all my paperwork. Well, it's a new system that's supposed to help streamline. Do I need to fill out the paperwork again? The system is supposed to help you get to your people. Do I need to fill out the paperwork again? Yes, sir, you need to fill out the paperwork again. Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to hear. No. After all that debacle, because that's the VA, I was like, you know what? I'm going to the DAV. I'm paying for the lifetime membership. I'm just not going to deal with this anymore. Which isn't that
expensive anyways.
Yeah, for a lifetime membership, a couple $100, not bad at all.
Yeah, I bought it years ago.
Yeah,
it's not that big of a deal.
I remember you had said you're like, they're good to have in your corner, and I was like, okay, yeah. I went, I got the membership. I'm gathering information. I got an appointment for my wrist, and I'm going to get that checked out and throw that paperwork in there. And then apparently there's one here at the chapter here at the local VA here in San Angelo. We're going to talk to him and see if we can't get this all figured out. Yeah, and the congressman too. I call congressman or whatever.
Yeah, you definitely. Now that's actually some of the advice that I had for David as well. Is first of all, he had he's a very different case because something happened with him that I've never seen before. He got into, I guess he had an episode or what have you. Anyways, he wound up in the hospital. I don't know all the details of it. We didn't go into great detail, but he had an episode where he wound up in the hospital and he was treated and eventually he was released. Well, several months down the road, he got a letter from the VA that had said, here's your award. Here's all of your, here's how much back pay you're getting, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, he did because he had no recollection whatsoever of even filing for any of this stuff. So one, it could be traumatic brain injury and he just forgot about it because it happens to me all the time. Or two, the VA actually did their job, stepped up and said, well, let's take care of this while you're here, which would really, really surprise me.
Well, I'll probably do it just so they said they did it. And they'll be like, well, we can't get everybody, but you only, but then you're just like, but you only got that guy. There's no one else got it. Like,
yeah, but that's not common practice.
Yeah, that's good.
You have to file claims. So,
because I remember you were telling me that too. Because I told you when I got asthma, it was right after I filed my disability. They diagnosed me with asthma. They're like, that's why you're coughing a lot. You have asthma. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, I got to tell Jeremy. I was telling you, and you're like, hey, you got to file that. And I was like, I went there because of the disability. So it should already be in the paperwork. And you're like, no, it's not. Well, no, surely the VA wouldn't do. Well, yeah, they would. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, all right, I got to go file that again. Let's go to that office again.
Nope. They don't hold your hand for anything.
Yeah, it's
if you need help,
ridiculous.
That's on you.
You're SOL.
No, you have to be persistent with the VA.
Remember, I would ask you about anything. I got to the point. Dude, you know me, man. I'm not too prideful to ask for help, and I'm not too prideful to be like, hey, if you got a minute, can you come with me and hold my hand? You know, right. I'm like, I don't give a crap if I look dumb or not. I want to get this right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't blame you. But the big problem is that so many people they talk to somebody in medical and they don't understand that the VA is just like every government entity ever. It's compartmentalized. So the people who are deciding the claims have nothing to do with the doctor who's looking at your asthma.
That sounds about right.
They have no idea. One hand has no idea whatsoever what the other one is doing.
They didn't even want to call me into the office for the interview. For what do they do when they like interview and ask you questions about it? They didn't even
The
call me.
CNP
Yeah,
exam.
they didn't even do that for my asthma. They're like, obviously it's not from us. I was like, is this guy retarded?
And you know the only way to do to get that covered is to just keep pushing back.
Yeah, and it's just the VA is
as good as the VA has gotten over the years, it's still a very broken system.
Yeah, I remember specifically the VA sent me a letter and they're like, you have to go to this appointment at this time at this location. And I was like, okay, cool. And I went there. And I was like, hi, my name is William Tenek, here for the appointment. And they're like, we got you right here, Mr. Tenek. And they're like, can you please fill this out? And I was like, cool. I was filling it out. Excuse me, ma'am. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, what am I here for? She's like, oh, it goes back to her computer. You're here to get this pulmonary check on your chest, blah, 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 your lungs. You're here for your asthma. Why couldn't the VA just tell me that? That's the VA system for you.
So you had an appointment that you didn't know about.
I knew to go and to be at that location. I had no idea what it was actually for.
Okay. I see.
And I have so many issues with the VA. One of them was I had a scare for certain there was a growth and people were like, okay, we need to get that checked out now. And I was like, okay. I remember I told you about this and they did the test. They're like, we need to get you down there now. They got me down to the Big Spring ones, couple days. I was like, wow, did I get bumped up to the front of the line or what? Like,
well, and you can.
Yeah.
You absolutely can get bumped up to the front of the line.
I was just excited that they got me there in a couple of days. It usually takes me a month or two to get up there. Finally, I got there and they did it. And they were like, well, Mr. Genetic, blah, 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 blah. And they were making it work. I was starting to get worried. I was like, I'm going to die. Like I was just one of those situations where I'm like, well, great. Better get my will filled out. But, but like they did the test and they're like, all right, we'll send you results 2 weeks later. 2 weeks with me being like, I hope those showed up. They were like, oh yeah, it's a call, blah, 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 blah.
Some Greek term. And
then they had like a little quotations, assist. And I was just like, okay, was there more that came with this, Dad? Like, is there something else? Like, what am I going to do with this here? And I was just like, I was very disgruntled by it. If there was a complaint box, I'd actually fill it out. And I had to call somebody and they go, oh, we'll get back in touch with you in a couple of weeks and we'll figure out the results to go. And I was like, okay, cool. Now, gets even better. I had filed a complaint. I honestly, you know me, I'm a very open guy, about going to the bathroom too much with the VA. And they go, okay, Chief, let's get you squared away. And they sent me out to one of these doctors like down the street. I was like, okay, cool, awesome. We're getting some good treatment. Yeah, awesome, great. They did some looking around. And this whole story, when I had found out it was a cyst, I had mentioned, I'm painting a very broad photo here and I'm trying to keep it very PG. Please forgive me.
I think anybody who's got an IQ above 80 knows exactly what you're getting at right at this point.
And at that particular moment, I had said, I go to the bathroom too much. And the doctor went, okay. And so I got the results back from a certain test. And they said, we'll let you know what we're going to do here in a couple of weeks. They said, go to this building. I went to this building. They decided to look around very in depth. And I remember thinking like, okay, this is the results of the cyst in a very in-depth location. And I was like, okay, I'm 25 years old. I'll say it once. I've never had anything shoved into my body like that. dude, I was like, whew, pretty traumatic experience. I was like, whew. And the guy goes, well, looks like you're just a little scarred. You just probably have an overactive bladder. And I was just being like, does it sound like something about a cyst? About that cyst, and he was looking at I remember he was looking at his notepad. Oh, that was probably burnout. It's like, I didn't know that was a medical opinion. Burnout. Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. And ever since I've just been like, ow.
Yeah.
So that's the VA in a nutshell for you.
If you didn't have post-traumatic stress from combat, you'd certainly have post-traumatic stress from that particular invasive.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because they essentially in a nutshell, they don't give you money for that. They won't give you money for that. No.
Oh yeah, no. They'll give you a pill to calm you down when they're doing things, but that's about it.
But what is really funny is we're talking about these numbers and stuff like that. I literally got a check from the VA. I've only gotten 3 since I've been out 10 years of the Army. I've only gotten 3. This was an 84-cent check for me to get out of my apartment at point A to go down the street to point B. Point A was my old apartment, Jeremy. Point B was right before the West Texas Medical Center. Down the street. They spent more money on the postage to send me an 84-cent check. And every time they've done it too. They've done it again too. Now I think I got another one for like 74 cents. And I'm like, I'm just like at a loss of words. Like, you want to tell me my asthma is not related to me, but you want to send me a check for 74 cents.
The world makes sense once again.
I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna cash that. I'm gonna put that in my bank account. It's the VA. I'm happy for the test and stuff like that, my annual health checkup, but at a certain point, I'm gonna be happy to be on an actual nice healthcare plan.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, and
they did finally end that individual mandate with the IRS.
Which was
I did my taxes a couple of days ago, which is why I look so depressed today, because I hate doing my taxes. Really takes it out of me. Anyway,
I can only imagine.
So I did my taxes, and to my joyful surprise, I finally don't have to answer whether or not I have health insurance. And that's been going on since Obamacare really got pushed into law, where you had to prove that you had health insurance. So my brother was up in arms over it last year because most of his tax return was dinged because he didn't carry health coverage. The individual mandate wiped out like 60% of his return.
I never really got affected by that, because when I do it, and I would just do it, I did it through H&R Block, and then last year I did it through a very, very smart individual. I paid him to do it, and he was great at the job. Freaking amazing. Saved a bunch of money. He was awesome. And I never had to show any paperwork. Well, that guy asked for one. He goes, do you have paperwork to show that you had healthcare? It's like, here's a VA thing. I think this is it. It's a VA. They have a DD everything form.
Sure.
And, but he kind of show his professionalism. H&R Block was like, do you have healthcare? And I looked at her and went, I'm with the VA. And she's like, is that healthcare? I'm like,
duh.
I think it is. Yeah, I don't have no paperwork to prove it, but I'm a vet. Yeah. She's like, okay, we're going to put that in. I'm like, cool. Do I get money back?
No.
Yeah.
The individual mandate was actually geared in the opposite direction. So if you weren't carrying health care,
you get dinged.
You get fined.
Yeah.
Which is a steaming hot pile of garbage, if you ask me, because yes, I get it. people should have health care. And I don't think that Medicare for all is the answer for that. I think that
Yeah.
if you get the damn government out of the market and let the free market work, while actually, and I do agree with Trump on one thing that he's been pushing is the transparency for medical procedures. Now, of course, hospitals are going to fight him tooth and nail on it. In fact, I think they already are trying to sue so that they don't have to reveal. But I'm like, why in the world is it that your health care should be decided between, say, the insurance companies and then the doctors, and oh, by the way, maybe you?
Yeah. I was thinking about that.
I'm kind of the most important factor here.
I was thinking about that. I mean, you have on top of issues like on top of it's you're paying for stuff you don't need,
Right.
but like, what about my wrist hurting? I have a brace on my wrist. My wrist hurting. Oh, I've already been down this road, all right, with the VA, right? So I'd be like, oh, that's not important. But Bob here had a heart attack. Okay, well, I guess then you put him in front of me, and like, so I feel like there'd always be someone put in front of you. All right, because I feel like that's how the VA system. I have to wait a month to get in, so I figure there's someone with more important issues in front of me.
Mm.
But I feel like that would be like, that's like the main issue. But then you got it. But then I was thinking about like the small things, like, with the idea of having a commodity like in the healthcare system, like for like, when I mean commodity, I mean like laser eye surgery.
So
Where
yeah,
would
actually,
that
that's a
go?
very interesting
Would
point.
that be just thrown out the window? Like, oh, that's not required for life.
Well, so here's the thing about, if you look at LASIK, LASIK was one of those technologies that the insurance companies were like, yeah, we're not going to cover that. And by the insurance companies saying that they're not going to cover LASIK, it forced the doctors and really the industry to figure out a better way to bring LASIK, because it's still an amazing technology.
Yeah, I would love to get LASIK.
And it pushed them into a method of figuring out, okay, how can we bring this to the people and make it affordable? Because we have to make it affordable if we want to sell it.
Yeah.
Duh. Whereas when you have the injection of insurance, the problem that we face there is the fact that the insurance has been injected into the system that actually artificially inflates all of these expenses that take place in the hospital. When you look at LASIK, LASIK is you pay for it. You just go in and buy it. There's no insurance that's going to cover it in the world. And so because of that, it's incredibly cheap today. I think it's like $2,000 per eye.
I don't even think it's that. I think you can get it done on a sale, $2,000 both eyes.
Is that right?
I think it's gone pretty cheap, but that was one of my. I thought about that today all this socialized healthcare. Everybody deserves socialized healthcare. Like, look at the VA system. Tell me how that's going for me, Chief.
Yeah, I think the people that would be calling for socialized medicine really have no idea how bad it can actually get. And
yeah,
the VA is a wonderful example of how bad a socialized system can really get. Like, I get it that, it sounds good on paper, and I'm grateful to have healthcare. But the reality of the situation is that if I went to a private hospital, I'm going to get a much better quality of care than I am at the VA.
Yeah.
I've been through it time and time again because, I've had to go to private hospitals. It does happen to the best of us. And so every time that I've been in a private hospital, granted, the VA has to foot the bill for it, but every time I've been in a private hospital, my treatment, like there's a very substantial difference in the quality of treatment, the quality of how you really, even just the way that people speak to you.
I've had people tell me, like, just small talk people be like, hey, I got to go to the VA tomorrow. I got an appointment. The hardest part for me was driving an hour and a half to it, and I'd be in and out in an hour or two, and I'd be driving back home. But we have, like, there's always be that one person that'd be like, I had to take my grandpa to the VA over in Dallas, and they're like, we had to wait all day for it. And they're like, it's just waiting in the waiting room all day. And I'm like, good God, that's the VA system for you, man.
Mm-hmm. That's it in a nutshell.
You should, and for the social health care argument, I mean, look at Britain's thing. I think it's like the wait time in the ER is exceptionally high, terribly high. I should be saying terribly high in the ER room. For you to get surgeries, it's an extremely long wait. I mean, anything. If I have to have surgery, I know someone somewhere is going to be like, I can get you in at 2:00. Like they're going to be real quick at a private institute. But this healthcare, the centralized healthcare, it's kind of. And I don't like the idea. Would I have to pay for heart attack insurance for an 18-year-old? That would like, how would they do it? But you get where I'm going at. Like, is everyone getting the same thing across the board, even if that person doesn't have a history of doing something like that?
I seriously doubt that.
See,
but the thing is you're going to get anecdotal information. If you look at the Canadian system, if you get on, of course, you'd have to get on some like get on the Twitter machine if you want to. You want to look up this stuff, and there's tons of Canadians that will go out there anecdotally and vouch for their system and praise it to the ends of the earth. But you know what? They're taxed at a much higher rate than we are. And oh, by the way, have you seen Canada's military?
It's not bad.
It's okay, I guess. I mean, it's a good. Let's just say that
they run around with M16s.
Let's just say that they're lucky they're on our side.
They're lucky we're neighbors.
Well, yeah. See, and that's the thing is without the strength of a military somewhere, there's going to be some semblance of chaos. The peace through strength. So if you have a scenario such as this, like in Canada, where we don't really put a whole lot of money into our military, because we're too busy paying for people's health care and whatnot, and that's all. That's fine. Like, you don't have to dump money into the military. I'm not criticizing you for that, but somebody has to, and unfortunately, that somebody is us. So how do we pay for socialized medicine and still maintain the peace through strength? Well, the leftist ideology is going to be like, well, we just need to go ahead and start budget cuts within the military. You don't need the Space Force anyways. You don't need that big of an army. You don't need dirt. Like, well, okay, yeah, because everybody and their mom is an expert on military endeavors and warfare and whatnot.
Oh boy!
Except for the people that have actually been there.
I'm the idiot.
I don't know anything.
I'm retarded. Let me go eat my crowns. I'll just go eat my crowns and drink my glue. Sorry.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I saw, we can end with this. This is really interesting. I saw a poll here recently on Twitter because I'm scrolling through Twitter looking for dumb stuff.
Old Twitter.
And it's definitely never let me down. There's a plethora of dumb stuff on Twitter. However, I saw recently a poll that was on Twitter, and the poll was, should military service be mandatory? Yes or no? Real simple, right? I'm one of the few who is of the opinion that yes, I think military service should be mandatory. I think it would help solve a lot of problems.
It would.
Now, the results of the poll, 78% of people said no, which tells me that 78% of the people are not willing to go into the military, or they're scared, or I don't know. It presents kind of a fear mindset in my estimation. What do you think?
I honestly, I go both ways. If they came out tomorrow and they went 2-year mandatory service, I'd be like, interesting. I've already done my time, but I'd be like, interesting. These kids these days, they're going to learn a thing or two now.
Yeah.
Gunny, good old Gunny.
Arlie Army.
Yep, one of the few Marines I respect. He actually said, you want to fix the VA healthcare system? Mandatory 2 years of service. We'll fix it real quick.
I bet it would.
Yeah.
And there's another thing that Arlie Army, he's been known to say from time to time. You know what that is?
I'm waiting. Sorry. Dramatic
Do
pose
some
for
freaking
waiting.
push-ups.
Oh, yeah.
Goodbye, everybody.
God bless.